Namaste everyone, welcome back to CodeCraft with Poonam. I'm your coding mentor Poonam Agrawal. Today we build a complete Spring Boot recipe API and connect every single feature back to what we learned in session 1 through 6. Okay, so this is not a new topic. It is everything you already know, now automated by Spring Boot. Got it? So by the end of this walkthrough, you will see at the rate transactional open and close sessions automatically. Okay. You will see JPA repository calling this persist method, find method. Okay. And you will see Spring data method names generate the exact JPQL from session 3. And also you will fix n+1 problem with the same join fetch from session 5. Okay, so you will add caching with the same concepts from session 6. Okay, so now let's get started. So now here we are going to start with our pom.xml file. Okay, so here we have all the dependencies. Okay, so here you see that is Spring Boot starter web. Okay, Spring Boot starter data JPA, Spring Boot starter cache. Okay, all these things, H2 database. Okay, so this is the same Hibernate we used in session 1 through 6. Okay, just we have auto configured it. So now let's move to application.properties file. Okay, so here in resources we have application.properties. Okay, so here you see all that we have the spring.h2.console.enabled equal to true, all these things. Okay, dialect, DDL auto, show SQL. Okay, this one format, generate statistics. Okay, so here this show hyphen SQL is equal to true. This is same as hibernate dot show underscore SQL is equal to true. That is in our this hibernate configuration file. Okay, and also same with this one. Hibernate.ddl-auto is equal to create a drop. Okay, this is same in our this one Hibernate configuration file. Okay, and then here you see that this is here spring.jpa.defer and hyphen data source hyphen initialization is equal to true. So here it ensures that tables exist before this data.sql runs. Okay. And then here our entity classes is identical to our session 4, 5 and 6. Okay. And then coming to this our category.java. So here there is no changes from our session 6. Okay. That is we have same at the rate entity, same at the rate table, same at the rate one to many and same at the rate cache. Okay. And then coming to our this one recipe.java. So here also there is no changes from our session 6. Okay, here also we have same at the rate entity, same at the rate table, same at the rate many to one, and same at the rate join column, and same at the rate cache. Okay, and now coming to our repository. Okay, so here recipe repository.java, this file. So here you see this is our public interface recipe repository extends this one. Okay, so here we have all these methods. Okay, so here is our list of recipe find by category name, order by name, ascending, string name. Okay, so here it has connection with our session 3. Okay, that is where Spring generates this JPQL automatically. That is we have this select statement from our recipe table. Okay, so there we wrote this by hand in our session 3. Okay, that is demo 1. So there Spring data generates it from the method name. Okay. And then coming to our this one, another method that is find by cook time minutes less than equal order by cook time minutes ascending. Okay, so here you see int cook time minutes. So here same. This is in connect with our session 3. Okay, so here this Spring generates the select statement from our recipe table. Okay, and then similar with all these methods. Okay, but coming to this at the rate query. Okay, so this is in connection with our session 5. Okay, this one at the rate query, this method, and this one at the rate query, this optional, this one. Find all with category method and find by ID with category method. These two methods are in connection with our session 5. So in our session 5, what we did, we have used join fetch to fix n+1 problem, right? We wrote this JPQL in session 5 demo 4. Okay. So if you want, you can check that session so that you will have a clear understanding. Okay. And there without join fetch, we have loaded recipes and accessed the category, right? That is, we have n+1 queries over there. So with join fetch, everything loaded in one query, right? So if you have been following my all the sessions, then you know already this. But if you missed it, then you can check it out. Okay. And similar with this method also, that is find by ID with category. Okay. So there what we did, we have used join fetch for a single recipe, right? Which loaded recipes and its categories in one SQL. So that's why there was no lazy initialization exception, right? So next coming to our this category repository.java file. Okay, here you see this is our public interface category repository extends JPA repository category long. Okay, so here we have these two methods, that is optional category find by name, okay, string name, and another thing boolean exist by name string name. Okay, and then here we have another method that is find all with recipe. So here we used at the rate query. So this is also in connection with our session 5. Okay, so there in our session 5, what we did, we loaded all the categories with their recipes, that is in one query using this join fetch, right? So that is, we have used this in demo 5 part B. Okay, so there we used distinct, which prevents duplicate category rows from the join. Okay. So now coming to our service, okay, that is here recipe service.java file. Okay, this one. So here, this is our class, service class. Okay. So here this is our constructor, and here you see this is our method, public recipe response add recipe method. Okay, so here you see with this method we have annotated with @transactional, right? So in our session 2, okay, so in our session 2, we used that is session.persist method, okay, so which is called by our repository.java file. Okay, so and in session 4, we have used this one add recipe method, right, which sets both sides of our many to one relationship. Got it? And this transactional, what will happen is Spring opens entity manager, that is our session. So before this method, and then Spring begins the transaction. Okay. So here this repository.save method uses session.persist method internally. Okay. So here Spring commits transaction when method returns, and then Spring closes entity manager. So if an exception is thrown, then Spring rolls back automatically. Got it? And then coming to our this one another method, okay, that is public recipe response. That is public recipe response find by ID. Okay, so here you see that we have annotated it with @cacheable, @transactional. So here what happens is this session.find method is called by repository.findById method. Okay, so that is in our session 2. Okay, we used it. And then in session 5, we have used join fetch, right, to avoid lazy initialization exception. And also in session 6, we have used @cacheable, which caches the result in memory. Okay, so what will happen is during first call, SQL fires. So result cached under key, recipes and ID. Okay, and the subsequent calls, there will be no SQL, that is served from cache. So which is same as level 2. Okay, that is second level caching, which I have already explained you in our session 6. Okay. Okay, so next coming to this one. Find by category, this method. Okay, here you see @transactional read only is equal to true. Okay. So here this find by category name generates JPQL. That is where clause. Okay, so this we have used in our session 3. And also in our session 5, we have used find all with category. Okay, so which uses join fetch. That is, there will be no n+1 problem. Okay, and here this read only is equal to true. This tells Hibernate that this transaction will not write data. So Hibernate skips dirty checking. So there will be faster for read-only operations. So same concept as the snapshot we discussed in our session 3. Okay. Then, so quick recipe search by name. Here you see this one. This method, public recipe response, update recipe, long ID, recipe request, request. So here you see this method we have annotated with @ cache evict value recipes and key ID. Okay, and annotated with @transactional. Okay, so in our session 2, okay, there we have done this dirty checking, right? And this @transactional keeps the entity manager, that is our session, open. So recipe is in persistent state inside the transaction. Okay, we just change the fields. So Spring commits and then Hibernate generates update. Okay, so there will be no explicit save method call needed. Okay, so same dirty checking from our session 2, that is demo 4. Okay, and this cache evict, it removes this recipe from the cache. So next read is fresh. Okay, in our session 6, we have used same concept as L2. That is L2 cache invalidation on update. Okay. Okay, and then here we have this one method, delete method. Okay, so here also you see we have annotated this method with @cache evict and this transactional. Okay, so in our session 2, we have used this session.remove method, right, which is called by repository.delete method. And in session 4, we have used cascade type on category, which removes recipes from category list. Okay. And in session 6, we have used this @cache evict, which removes stale data from cache on delete. Okay. So here you see this one, recipe repository dot delete recipe, right? So in our session 2, that is session dot remove method is there. So that is called internally. Okay. And then here you see this is our private recipe response to response. Okay, this is our helper method. Okay, so string category name, get category, get name. Okay, and returning all this name, ID, name, cook time is vegetarian. So this is our DTO mapping helper. Okay, so here in this category, proxy is not loaded here. Okay, and we have used this transactional in our session 5. Okay, so that is the where we have this lazy initialization exception scenario. Okay, and then coming to our this controller. Okay, recipe controller, this is our REST controller at the request mapping. Okay, all these things, all the methods. Okay, this one get our recipe method, get recipe by ID, this get by category. Okay, get quick recipes, search recipes. So this is our post mapping, add recipe method. Okay, this is our put mapping, update recipe method, and here this is our delete mapping. Okay, delete recipe method. So here in DTO you can see that this is how it is. Okay, this is our recipe response. We have all getter setter methods. Okay, and then this is our exception, global exception handler. Okay, so you can check all my previous sessions. Okay, where I have explained it detailedly. Okay, so you can watch my Spring Boot series as well as Hibernate series. Then you will get a clear picture about how this Spring Boot works. Okay, And then this recipe not found exception in Java. Okay, this one. So, congratulations. You have finished the Hibernate and JPA series. Okay, so here is everything you now know and can explain to anyone. So by now you have learned, right? Hibernate. So that is Spring Boot equivalent. So that is in our first session of this Hibernate series, you have learned ORM JPA Hibernate, right? So where we have used at the rate entity annotation. Okay. So this will be auto configured on startup of your Spring Boot application. Okay. And in our session 2, we have used CRUD, right? Where we have seen our CRUD project with session. So in our Spring Boot, it is equivalent to a JPA repository methods. Okay. And then in session 3, you have learned JPQL queries in Hibernate series, right? In Spring Boot, we have that is equivalent to Spring data method names and at the rate query annotation. Okay. And coming to our this Hibernate, in Hibernate, this at the rate one to many, many to one, this we have used in our session 4. Okay, so this is the same annotations in our Spring Boot. And in our session 5 of Hibernate series, we have learned lazy eager, right? And we have learned this lazy initialization exception. We have seen emplacement problem, right? So that is equivalent to Spring Boot. In Spring Boot, we have used at the transactional scope and joint fetch. Okay. And coming to this session 6 of our Hibernate, where we use this L1 and L2 cache, cache, right? That is equivalent to our Spring Boot, where we have used at the rate cacheable and at the rate cache evict. Okay, so if when you use this Spring Boot, what happens behind the scene is your this Hibernate. Okay, so this session 7 part 1 and part 2 is the combination of your Spring Boot and Hibernate. Okay. So when you use Spring Boot, what happens behind the scene now you know. So there is no magic anymore, right? Everything is revealed. So this is for today's session. If you liked my teaching, then do let me know through comment and hit the like button and share it with your circle so that it will be helpful to them. And do not forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you will not miss any of my videos. Till then, keep learning, keep growing. This is Poonam Agrawal from CodeCraft with Poonam signing off.